Okay, we're ready? Okay, welcome. I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item we have is assignment for request for council action. We have several for finance. We have 2317 transfer request for the MCRC capital contribution, 2318 budget amendments, 2319 municipal court intensive supervision probation grant positions, 2320 2023 membership renewal Main Street Medina, 2321 2023 SPCA funding request, 2322 water connection request for Abbeville Road, 2323 material bids, 2324 increased expenditure for Goodyear Tire Sanitation Department, 2325 purchase rear load sanitation truck, 2326 payment for Dunlap and Johnston Inc. CDBG Target of Opportunity Grant, 2327 then and now for Winthrop Construction emergency railroad repairs, 2328 South Court Street hotel easements discussion, 2329 bids for job number 1055 MCRC Fitness Room Edition, 2330 Friends of the Cemetery Entry Gate and Mausoleum Repair Project, 2332 Adopt Equal Opportunity Policy, and for public properties, we have 2331 the Helos Project for Champion Creek Multipurpose Trail. 2315 Public Lots, Garages, and Parking Regulations amend code. Who's handling this? Yes.
Thank you. These are amendments to our parking code. We discussed these at a previous Finance Committee meeting. So really, we didn't have much of a definition for what our lots and garages are. So the first thing this does is define municipal off-street parking facilities, which is basically all the garages and lots that we control. A new section, 351.14, adds some general requirements. The city engineer is authorized to basically designate how they operate, the lanes, the parking, things of that nature, exits. The mayor can place time limits on a parking lot. There are a few other regulations which are pretty general. And then it allows the police department to enforce these requirements just as they would on the street. The second part is a 351.15, creates a permitting system. So this allows any resident of the historic district or historic landmark to purchase a parking permit and allows them to stay in any parking lot in excess of the time limits. So it doesn't guarantee them a spot, it doesn't reserve any space, it just allows them to stay in there as long as they'd like to stay. Based on some feedback, we've had a couple of changes. One in 351.15D, the price was $20 per month, and it was also added that it's either $20 a month or $200 for an entire year. It also states this is not refundable, so if you get the year and you move out, you don't get a refund. It also indicates that the Community Development Department, or my department, would issue the permits as we have a permitting system that's set up for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dutton. I guess the only question I have was when you talk about the permits, I think this came up from the Liberty View project. When you say resigning, are you requiring, what do you require to prove resigning? What does that mean? Are you requiring a copy of the lease, or what do you put on file to substantiate that if somebody comes and says, yeah, I'm residing in the district? What does that mean?
I've seen in other places where it's usually a lease or utility bills or something of that nature. They don't always have a lease. Sometimes it's month to month. So just something where we can determine that they've been living there, they will be living there.
Do we have to say that in here, or is that like an administrative function that makes a determination of what they have to show to prove that they're residing in the district?
I'd like it to be administrative. There's a little bit of flexibility there. There might be different ways that we could think of to show that they actually live in that apartment or unit.
Okay. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for all the work on that. We have 2317, a transfer request for the MCRC capital contribution. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. President. The joint operating agreement for the rec center requires that we make this contribution to the capital account. It has recently been increased, which is noted here in the request. During 2022, we pass an ordinance to increase this request, which is necessary because of inflation and the building's older than it was when we started.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2318, the first one we have is 2023-005, a donation. Keith?
This is a pass-through, but we still need to approve the appropriation, and then the second one is a refund, so same thing, because we got the refund, we need approval to have it as part of the appropriation.
Okay, for 2023-05 first.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2023-06, the refund.
Move to approve.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2319, municipal court intensive supervision probation grant positions. Cindy?
Thank you, Mr. President. This also has the emergency clause with it as well. This is just to upgrade the two positions that we have that are currently funded through the CC8 and the JR, the two grants that we currently have funded.
I just say J. Ray.
It's been a long Monday, I apologize. We had them at 2%, and since the city now does 3.5%, we just want to bring them up to what the other probation officers are currently receiving as salaries.
And this will be effective as of January 1st of this year?
Right, because all of our staff received their increases as of the 1st of January.
Okay. Any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2023 membership renewal for Main Street Medina. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know George is here and wants to do a presentation to council, but this is the request for the annual $30,000 stipend from the city of Medina for the ongoing work that Main Street does to draw visitors and host events here in our community. George?
Sure.
First of all, I have to say thank you for your support in 2022. It was a very big year of transition. As you know, Matt has left the organization, and he's been doing this for 15 years and did a really good job at it. And me as being new, I'm just learning the ropes, so thank you for your patience with me. We did have a successful year. We hired Angela Mansir, who's here today, she was our farmers market director, and now she's our events director, helping us out with all of our events, which, as you know, is mostly what we do. We do other things too, design development. We help with economic vitality, promotions, and our committees are pretty strong at this point. And we're happy with all the volunteers we have and the support we get from the chamber, the county, the city, and our nonprofit partners as well. So I really am proud to be part of Medina, because Medina is very much supportive of the Main Street program, and a lot of communities around the country are not as enthusiastic. Some see it as a competition, but I'm very proud that we work together so well, and you could see the success of the program. Just wanted to note a couple things. This year we sponsored 55 events, and part of that was a new event, Southtown Music Festival. It was our first one. We plan to have them every year at this point. 23 of those were farmers markets, which were very successful. We had 40 full-time and 16 part-time vendors. We increased the SNAP Redemption Program, which is a food assistance program, to $13,260. It was up from $10,000 some dollars. Produce Perks, similar program where they match the SNAP program dollars for up to $25, and that program increased to $12,000 from $9,000. We counted a rough estimate, and some estimate numbers are pretty accurate through the farmers market counts that we do, but we feel that we've increased the visitors with our 55 events to about 176,672 visitors this year. And we are happy to say that that was an increase from 155, mainly because of the farmers markets and the fact that we held a record number of events this year. So we hope to increase those numbers every year. We have a lot of website visitors and Facebook visitors, which we think are an example of how the community responds to us, and we are able to reach out to visitors pretty successfully. We also have a lot of volunteers. We put in 2,510 volunteer hours this year, and that comes out to a value of about $30 per work hour of $75,175 donated dollars to the city. That brings us to a donor support of $244,386, 7-to-1 return on investment for the city's $30,000 that they give us. And that was up from $180,000 in 2021. Those events bring in dollars to Main Street through our sponsors and our event proceeds, and those dollars help make the events free to the public. Anyone can come, and that's what we're very proud of, that we've maintained free status because of our sponsors and donors. We have 134 member businesses at this point. We had 111 last year, so that continues to grow. 12 of them are $1,000 level, 16 are $500 level, 106 are $225. And of course, we have 26 nonprofits in with that and 66 non-business members. We hope that this continues, but we have a $1.8 million economic impact based on the $30,000 that the city provides us. That's a 58-to-1 return on investment, which is based on a person coming in and spending $10 per person at each event. So we're very proud of those numbers. We have successfully completed our 15th anniversary this past year. We hope that you all can make our annual meeting, which is Wednesday, starting at 5 o'clock for a VIP get-together and 6 o'clock for the annual meeting. And we continue to do volunteer training. We have board changes that have happened recently, so you'll be able to meet our new board members, and of course, that continues to grow. We helped with the city's comprehensive plan, and thank you for doing that, because that helps us to help you make these points successful. We are helping with the historic preservation of the community. We helped with the architectural review and historic preservation guide and brochure this year, and we do plan this year to start a new program that will be preservation dollars back to those who want to do improvements through facade grant matches and hopefully building rehab grant matches. We attended the National Main Street Program Conference. There's one coming up in March, and we hope you could join us at that. It's in Boston, which is a lot of fun. And there's one in Toledo every year, too, that this state holds. I know Andrew was at that one. Pretty good information that comes out of those for both city and Main Street programs working together on projects. I just wanted to ask if you had any questions for me. Otherwise, again, thank you so much. I appreciate the City of Medina support, the staff support that we get from all of you guys. Thank you all very much, and we hope to have another successful year in '23. And forgive me for my lost voice.
Thank you, Sam. I think that
George.
George Simmons. Last
I
name.
get it all the time.
We appreciate, our relationship with Main Street Medina, and we appreciate over the years, I think it's worked very well. And I think we're very excited about the prospects that we continue to garner with our relationship. I mean, the square and the events that we have on the square have been fantastic. I hear a lot of compliments throughout the community. And, I guess this couldn't be a better relationship. I know that there's some hearing Main Street programs throughout the state that really aren't that great, and they want to try to emulate what we have. But I think we are becoming a leader, or are a leader, throughout the state of what you can do with a Main Street program. And I think that we've proven that. But I appreciate all you've done, and welcome aboard, so to speak, and Angela, welcome aboard too. And I think that we look forward to a great 2023 season. Does anybody else have any comments? Mr. Lamb?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad to hear about the historic preservation dollars, because I think that's a critical part of Main Street. It's great that, and we know how successful we've been with this partnership. It's great to use the historic district as a theater set, but the preservation of the district, is relevant and important to both us and to Main Street in our joint success. So my one concern that I have is, and I don't have any numbers, but I'm not sure how many board members, Main Street board members, have local businesses or own businesses in the historic district. Is that a concern?
What's the requirement?
I don't think that's true. I think there are probably half that have some relationship to a business. I know Kelly Parks is an example. Tom O'Connell with Habitat for Humanity.
That's not the historic district, though.
It's in the Southtown district.
Yeah. I'm just talking about the district, because initially when business groups were formed, a number of them over the decades, they were centered. There was always people that were in the district, operating a business, owning buildings. And I think that that was a good thing to keep preservation and in the sense of the historic district in mind.
Right. Yeah, I could say that most of our board members are either, and I can't name them right now, but they're either in the district, related in some way to the district, or we have committee members that are also business owners. A lot of our committees, chairs are business owners. Ellie Burmeister's another board member who owns Sully's Cafe, or Sully's Irish Pub. So I can't think of them all. John Stahl owns
I was going
Farmer's
to say, I have the
Stable.
list up here if you want me.
Thank you. There are a lot, so.
There are.
But I do think we get the support from the local businesses in our organization, and I do think that does come back to our I guess, our focus on historic preservation and preservation of those buildings, and of course, support of the businesses that are in those buildings.
Okay?
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Ms. Shields?
I just want to thank both Angela and George. It's really been great working with you. I know we all were nervous when Matt was leaving, but boy, it's been seamless, and you two both do a great job. I've enjoyed working with both of you and
Thank
look
you.
forward to many more years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Mr. Simpson?
Just, George, Angela, we really and truthfully appreciate everything that both of you and all your board members do to promote the health of this city, and I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
You guys are the best, you know it.
And I have a daughter that lives in Boston, and I'm bringing the Bostonians here to Medina to see what we have.
The Medinites.
The Bostonians.
The Bostonians
Mr. Rose?
and the
Ditto.
Bring them
Medinites.
here. Yeah, bring them here.
Ditto. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Second?
I don't think we had an emergency clause. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. 2321, 2023 SPCA funding request. I think this came from Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose usually handles this every year, so.
Okay,
Mr. Rose?
thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we have Mr. George Marquis, the Executive Director, President, Chief Cook, Bottle Washer of the SPCA. He's been doing this for a number of years. We worked out a lot of rough spots, and he still has a lot more rough spots to go. This past accounting period from October 1st, 21 to September 30th, 22, there was an intake of approximately 256 animals at a cost of in excess of $71,000. And they're requesting a donation from us. Again, this year, in 22, we awarded them a donation of $10,200. With the 3.5% increase that we've worked into the budgets for this coming year, I'm requesting that we increase our donation to $10,575 for the year.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Comments?
Mr. Marquis, do you have anything to add? No, sir. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Hub.
Okay.
I'll make a motion then to approve a donation of $10,575 to the SPCA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next one is 2322 water connection request for Abbeville Road. Is this Mr. Pacoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. Robert Hinkle, who's the owner of 4599 Abbeville Road, it's in York Township. He petitioned, he inquired in the service office about a water tap, having a city water. County does not have water in front of his property. This would be the first step in allowing him to build a home, which will enhance their quality of life. So you see that he included all the minutes from York Township Board of Appeals. Part of the, in accordance with that decision, was to raise the home that's there and remove the cistern if this is granted.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just one, Mr. Coyne.
Mayor?
If I remember correctly, this is directly next door to the one we granted a month or so ago.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And then he started talking, and then the neighbors got together,
Neighbors
and that's
talked.
how we have this one.
Any other questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2323 material bids. Nino?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our annual material bids for the Service Department, Parks, and any other department that would benefit. It's for concrete, stone, sand, all our aggregate, our water system maintenance material, water line supplies, as well as cold water meters.
Any discussion?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2324, the increase of expenditure for Goodyear Tire Sanitation Department. Mr. Pacoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. So we ended the year 2022 thinking we would have money left on the PO for Goodyear. It was about $300, unfortunately, because we had needs in tires in December. So we did get a purchase order so we can continue operations for $15,000 through the Board of Control, and that was approved on January 9th. This request is to increase that PO by $30,000 to $45,000 for the year. The local company, they deliver, pick up, they have recap, retread, and the city service departments serviced well by them. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2325, a purchase of a rear load sanitation truck. Mr. Pacoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. So many years ago, sanitation department ran with 32 cubic yard trucks that was really big hoppers, heavy trucks. We migrated probably 12, 15 years ago to the 25 cubic yard hopper. Easier on the streets and just less light load. Going forward, talking with the supervisors, we were looking at a 13 cubic yard truck, which has two things. It's under the CDL requirement, does not require a CDL to be operated, which it's difficult for employees to obtain CDLs. We talked about in past meetings having to go to expensive schools, certified schools. That's one intriguing option for this vehicle, and the intent is to use this truck for the recyclable material. That would be the cardboard route, the yard waste truck. It's lighter on the streets. The hopper is smaller. It's kind of what Mr. Rose saw in, I think, New York, Councilman Rose, when they had a split body. It's not quite the split body, but it is half of what we have today, almost 25 cubic yard going to a 13. Easier on fuel, and the cost is appealing as well, $196,000 versus $280,000 for a 25 cubic yard rear loader currently, almost $300,000. And it was in the budget. I see you looking around, but it was in the budget we talked about.
All right, that's good to know.
This one's on you, John, not me. I'm not buying this one.
Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2326, a payment to Dunlap and Johnston for the CDBG Target of Opportunity Grant. Mr. Dutton?
Thank you. Yes, this is part of the larger project for the Medina County Battered Women's Shelter. It's our CDBG Target of Opportunity Grant. It's $141,000 to Dunlop and Johnston. They awarded the bid for the portion of the project related to cupboards and flooring throughout the facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2327, a then and now for Winthrop Construction for emergency railroad repairs. Mr. Patton?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is to cover two emergency repairs to our rail line. Both were done in October, November. One was in Kokosing's yard, and the other was about 100 feet east of Progress, where Progress Crossing is.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2328, a South Court Street hotel easements for discussion. Mr. Dutton?
Thank you. As you're aware, proposed 75-room hotel located on South Court Street across from Casa Noel was approved by our Historic Preservation Board, Planning Commission, and Board of Zoning Appeals in November. The approval was a result of a lengthy discussion between the boards and the public and staff. Ultimately, the approved plan located the building near South Court Street and had 43 parking spaces to the rear. Based on the plans and discussion, the boards were aware that easements would be necessary between the city and the developer, Mr. Gersbacher, for the project. To that end, Mr. Gersbacher and his team have been working with Mr. Huber, Mr. Patton and myself to draft a number of easements. So before you is a document for discussion, basically to ensure council is amenable to these easements before the applicant has a professional contractor create the exhibits, which is a significant cost. So kind of correlating to the map you have at the end there, the first one is a access easement, so it basically just guarantees access from Court Street to the rear parking area for the public and patrons. I mean, obviously that happens right now, but it would allow them indefinitely. The second is a utility easement, so this is for underground utilities on the north side of parking lot 4, or effectively lot. So these will be all buried. There'll be some, work when they're dug up and put in there, but ultimately it'll look the same when it's completed. The third part has a number of components. This allows some permanent structures on lot number 4. One being a handicap accessible ramp, which is necessary due to the grade change that goes down on Court Street. The entrance to the hotel's rear parking area will need to connect to parking lot number 4, so that's part of this one as well. In addition, third part is the landscaping will be taken out between the parking lot and the hotel and replaced in a more cohesive manner. The fourth item is an EV charging station. So that would be a charging station on the parking lot 4 property, but would be owned and operated by Mr. Gersbacher, probably in the north row of the parking lot near about the back of the proposed hotel. And the fifth is a sidewalk easement. So as the front drop-off area kind of curves the sidewalk onto the hotel property, this just allows the public to utilize that sidewalk as if it was a public sidewalk. So as I noted, these items were mostly expected due to the complexities of redeveloping in a downtown. And at this point, we're just asking for council's general support so we can move forward with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rose?
with regard to the EV stations, is that going to be just for hotel guests, or is it going to be for first come, first serve?
Yeah,
Can I have comment here?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to the rear if you would, so that's in the mic.
We're really talking two sets of EV stations. We're looking at putting 2 on the hotel site itself. And then what I had suggested is that an opportunity for the city to put in EV stations on the public side, on the parking lot, all of which would be publicly owned and managed, but we would supply, we're going to be running power in that utility corridor for the 2 or so EV stations that we would like to put in there eventually, and thought it would be an opportune time for additional public EV stations directly opposite on the public lot with not necessarily a timetable put in, but we would need commitment up front in order to assure that we would eventually be able to be compensated for the power usage for those EV stations by running power down that utility corridor. It does take relatively heavy power to make those function properly. So I guess we're looking at a open-ended approval with the city pretty much in charge of those EV stations on the public side, and we would probably utilize the same power line for a couple of EV stations on the hotel site itself.
With regard to the compensation, I've never owned an EV car, I've never charged one, but it was my understanding that to charge your car, you put your charge card in, and whoever's charge card is used, that's who pays for the power.
Well, I'm not quite sure how the money traces either, but we're looking for simply being compensated for the power that gets used, however that's done, whether it's, obviously the patron is going to pay for the power, and after that card goes in, how those monies are distributed, I think needs to be set out in maybe a separate agreement here, with the city being compensated for its cost, expense, maintenance, et cetera, and us for the power being supplied.
Yeah, that's for smarter people than me. Sort that out, okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Or actually, I guess, Mr. Patton, how many existing EV stations do we have right now in our parking lot?
Currently, at the moment, we don't have any.
How many are we supposed to have? How many have we approved?
We will have 6
Okay.
here, and then if we're able to get the grant from the car dealership, we'd have as many as 4 more at a location to be determined.
Okay. I'm just thinking, city tax dollars wise, why we would feel the need to add 2 more EV stations. I recognize that you're offering us the opportunity since you're planning on already putting it in, but it seems like the city already has enough EV parking spots, correct? Anyone?
I don't know about that, but
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
I think the future is pretty obvious if you listen
So
to
we're
what-
going to need more.
What the car dealerships are doing. I think there's a lot of mandates. I don't know if it was GM or something, like by 2035, they're going all EV. There's no more,
No, it was Volvo, and it's the state of California.
is it? Well, I thought there was some company was talking about they want to phase out their
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I was
combustion vehicles
asking.
and go to EV. But I guess the question is, when we talk about the EV stations here, is there a limit, or, I mean, you mentioned like 2 on one side, 2 on the other, I think. I mean, are we talking about, because I would imagine the size of the power, lines that dictate how many EV stations you could have. I mean, if we're going to put something in, what are we envisioning happening? I know you don't have to put as many EV stations in as you use all that power, but I understand what Mr. Gershbacher's talking about. I mean, people who use this are going to pay by credit card, and there's going to have to be some separately metered areas that make a determination of how much power is being used based upon your credit card usage, and I think there's an administrative function there to determine that. But it sounds like everything's going to run off this one power line, but how many on each side? Do we talk a limit, or how do we dictate that? Does anybody talk about that?
Let me just suggest that, number one, we haven't put a time limit on it, but I do think we need to establish an upper limit that those EV stations could be put in over time as demand grows. And so maybe you start with 1, or maybe you wait 2 or 3 years to start, and then you add 2 or 3 more as demand increases. So I think it's an open-ended issue in regard to the timeline. I think, and availability. Perhaps there will be other opportunities like the car dealership promoting or providing stations that you'd like to take advantage of. So there isn't any pressure to put them in, but I think we do need some kind of commitment in order to amply supply the power, so we aren't going back in there and digging up, and because we are talking underground power lines here. We're trying to get rid of those power lines that are currently hanging up on poles, get them down underground, but making a pit there, something that will allow the connection of future EV stations.
Right, I don't know how much power we have available, or if they're from, Ohio Edison, or does there have to be another substation or some kind of transformer to boost up the power? I have no idea if there's room for.
It takes 3-phase power. There is a
Is
3-phase
it?
power pole there. So we can get adequate power to the area, but we just need to supply the right kind of lines and the ability to connect those.
Well, I think it's better to plan ahead, and if you don't use it, at least you have it available for use, because we can't predict the future, but we kind of know where it's going. So I think we should plan ahead for both use on the private property and the public property, because, I don't think we want to be in a situation where we're short.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you need to make a reasonable estimate of how many you think you might ultimately need. It's very expensive to run this, so if you want to run for 15 stations and you only need 3 or 4, it's, I guess my suggestion is maybe we look at it and decide what a reasonable number is, size it for that, and then also install an empty conduit. So 10 years from now, you don't have to dig everything up. You just, pull another feed into the location.
That sounds like the best approach, I guess, is to plan for some, and then, plan for open conduit for who knows how many more, if that happens to be the case. Because it does seem like the individuals are gonna be paying for it, and it's not gonna be a burden on the hotel or a burden on the city.
Right.
They're gonna use their own card to charge their own vehicle, whether it be overnight, most likely, if they stay in a hotel, or, going on the city side. I don't know, the restaurant over there, I don't know really who would use that, or I'm sure some people park from the hotel side and the city side. But Kimberly?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think, Patrick, when we were talking about the EV stations for the parking deck, there were a couple options, like level 1 and level 2. One was like a faster charge, a slower charge. So the electrical infrastructure, wasn't it different depending on which type of station? Yeah, so that's probably another thing that you need to think about if it's going to be fast charging or slow charging. Because I think the slower charging was, I don't know, was it like a half day or 6 hours or something like
8
that?
hours, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just one other little wrinkle to think
Okay.
about.
Well, I think we need to plan for that, and I think there's more
Yes.
discussion needs to be had to add that into the document, just to make a determination that there's flexibility. I guess, Mr. Huber, I know he's not here this evening, but build in the flexibility to add more or do things that will be beneficial to both parties. Mayor?
The existing parking deck was built with the infrastructure, electric infrastructure for the facilities that Patrick mentioned. We talked about this donation from Chevy, which is a nationwide program, and possibly putting some in the other parking deck, because we have zero, obviously, over there. What we would have, though, in addition to the charging stations and the advertisement of the Chevy dealership, would be the infrastructure that's currently not there. It wasn't built with that in mind back when it was built. So that would have to be modified. And then here, the only complication, not that it can't be handled legally, but if we have a number on Mr. Gerschbacher's property and a number on city's property, but it's all being metered at the same place versus individually, that gets a little bit more complicated as to where it's coming from. Now, I don't know, Patrick, if you know from when we put this deck together, if it's possible to have separate meters for those?
Yes, they're all individually metered. That's tied to the usage and the charge.
Okay. Has Mr. Huber approved the lease agreement as it is, or is that still under review?
This agreement's still under review.
Okay, so I don't think you all are voting tonight, right? This is just discussion?
No, this is discussion,
Okay.
right.
I just wanted to be careful of that, because he's not blessed it at this point in time.
Any other questions or comments?
I do, just a general, not to this specifically, but do we have any issues with Ohio Edison providing enough power?
I don't believe so. That being said, I haven't spoken to them directly, but I think they should have, we could follow up on that, but
Okay.
they should have sufficient.
'Cause you hear stories here and there that, well, you can't charge your car because somebody's running their air conditioning.
Yeah.
Okay, so just want to make sure we don't
Right.
run into that problem here.
Any other comments? I think everybody's in agreement kind of with the easement situation and the EVs and all that. Everybody okay with it?
Yep.
All right. Sounds like we have Mr. Huber move forward so we can finalize the document and, come with a plan of how the EV stations will be incorporated. But it sounds like the use of our lot for the hotel purposes, for ease of operations and the handicap ramps and everything makes sense. Because the goal is to make it easy for everybody.
And Mr. Gerschbacher, I'd just, personally like to thank you for taking the opportunity to work with the Planning Commission again and the public with their concerns and to modify your plans to make it, more accessible or acceptable to the general public, old Medinians, I call them, and obviously the majority of people here on this day is too. I just want to thank you for your hard work in this project, and it'd be good to see it moving forward. Thank you, sir.
As a fellow old Medinian, thank you.
I know.
All right, thanks. So when you get that back, just bring it back and we can put it back on finance and discuss it. So thanks for that. The next item we have is 2329, bids for job number 1055, MCRC Fitness Room Addition. Mr. Worley?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to advertise, bid, and award contract for construction for the fitness room addition at the rec center. The project is approximately 1,800 square feet with a construction budget of $700,000 and an owner's reserve contingency of $70,000. We're expecting to bid this as a single prime contract, and we have worked over the last several months with Fanning Howie Associates and the Medina City Schools, not only on the feasibility study, but looking at the design, the existing plans, developing new plans, and a construction estimate for the project. In addition to that, we have executed the joint development agreement with the Medina City Schools District, and we were awarded funding up to $350,000 through House Bill 687, and we plan to match that with our carry-forward funds that were saved over the last several years. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President?
Mr. Shields?
Because this involves my employer and to make sure I avoid any conflict of interest, I'm going to abstain from this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2330.
Abstain.
Oh, any abstentions?
Aye.
I go too fast. 2330 Friends of the Cemetery Entry Gate and Mausoleum Repair Project. Mr. Worley?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Friends of the Cemetery talked with Nino and I regarding their interest in hiring Perspectus Architecture to perform on-site work, observations, and document work that's necessary for repair to our entry gate and the mausoleum at Spring Grove. These two projects were identified in our master plan that was passed by council in 2018 when they looked at all the historic structures at Spring Grove. So they're looking to engage Perspectus to come up with construction drawings, technical specs, and contract documents for a large-scale repair project. So we discussed doing this approval in two phases, since it's going to require some site investigation at our mausoleum. What we're looking for today is a blessing from council for the Friends to engage Perspectus, to hire them and do this investigative work, develop the plans, come up with a cost estimate, and then we intend on coming back to get your approval to move forward with the project after we review the plans, look at the cost estimate, and talk with Mr. Huber to see if we need to do any sort of project agreement. It's their intent to pay Perspective Architecture. The estimated gift for this project is $14,275. And I want to thank the Friends for their continued dedication to historic preservation, beautification, and maintenance of Spring Grove. Paul Wood and Chet Simmons are here representing the Friends as well, if you have any questions.
Any questions? So how
I
long
have
would it
one,
take to
John.
get that information back? I guess is the first question.
For phase one,
Right.
Paul or Chet, have you had any conversations with Perspectus that you could answer?
Once they're hired.
Hi, yes, once they're hired, they said about 12 weeks to get it, the finance, how much it's gonna cost in order.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering what the phases of the project and how long it would take to make a determination, and then come back to us with phase two with the recommendation, I guess, of the repairs necessary to both those items, but okay. Mayor?
Thank you. Jansen, does this require any either letter of agreement or memorandum of understanding between the Friends and the city, this first phase?
The first phase, I don't believe so. We did mention it to Mr. Huber at the staff meeting. It's just purely investigation to come up with plans. And I think that's where we're going to need to sit down and decide if we need to have some sort of agreement together. But I was anticipating this would just be a resolution accepting their letter of intent to engage here.
Support.
Yeah.
Support. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we didn't have to make a contingent on Mr. Huber, but it does not sound like so.
Sure, right, correct. Any other comments or questions?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, this evening, 2332, adopt an equal opportunity policy. I know Mr. Huber had this, so is it Mr. Lemire or the mayor?
So The reason this is before council is the police department has a $60,000 grant through the Department of Justice. And unlike other federal grants, the Department of Justice requires that the city have a EEOC policy in place, a formal one. And for whatever reason, I looked through the records with Kathy's assistance, and we found that council has never passed such a policy, although all of our hiring information, all of our job postings, everything else reference following the EEOC rules. There was never a guideline in place. We did find 2 letters from 2 prior administrations, Mayor Gus Ebley, who preceded Councilman Lamb as mayor, and then Jim Roberts, who preceded the late Mayor Lever. Both of them signed letters indicating that we do follow all the rules, which we do, but we didn't have an official policy, and policies are generally run through and adopted by the council. So I asked Mr. Huber to take a look at some others that Kathy gathered for us from other cities, and this will create an official EEOC policy for the city of Medina, both to meet their requirements and for us to have, because we should anyway.
Makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Anything else to come before the Finance Committee before we adjourn? Anybody have anything else? All right, the Finance meeting is adjourned.